Hello and welcome to another of the Acquire Group's Head Honcho interview series. My name's Gavin Houchell. I'm delighted today to be joined by Stuart Comino. Stuart is the Chief Financial Officer of the Australian Beverages of Coca-Cola Amatil. So welcome, Stuart.
Great to be here, Gavin.
Now, Stuart, you look after quite a big chunk of the business. I think $2.7 billion in revenue.
Yep.
You have to lead and direct over 300 finance and commercial people, and obviously play a key strategic role partnering the MD, the executive group, and the board. So I'm sure that keeps you a little bit occupied.
Yeah, it does. It's been a good ride.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the beverage business is a very large and complex business, and you moved into the CFO seat about 2 years ago in Australian operations. I was curious to understand how your career got you set to move into that position 2 years ago.
Right. Good question. I've been with Coca-Cola Amatil for 23 years, so it's been quite a journey for me up to the point of taking on the Australian Beverages role. But prior to working for CCA, I completed sort of left school thinking, look, I'm reasonably good at maths, and I think a career in finance could be one that I could get a degree of success in. I chose then to take on a Bachelor of Business, completed that, got my accounting qualifications working for a company called Coopers & Lybrand, and at the time I was a very passionate scuba diver,
right.
And I also was somewhat ambitious and was looking to travel as well, but very keen to sort of pursue my passions and also try and cement a career at the same time. So having bedded down postgraduate qualifications, I headed up to Papua New Guinea for a few months to pursue my passion, which was scuba diving. I ended up getting a job with Coca-Cola Amatil back in '93, but in IT. So I'd sort of established my credentials in with an accounting qualification, and I will always advocate that getting a strong academic base is really helpful. Accounting is a language of business, and if you pursue a CFO path, then it's a critical foundation. But in joining Amatil, I'd made the choice that practice probably wasn't for me. Right. I enjoyed the dynamic nature of a commercial organisation, and Amatil has provided me an extraordinary range of diversity across those 23 years, and that's probably one of the benchmarks of when I talk to people about career and career path. I think seeking diversity, ensuring that gives you the ability across as you seek that diversity. Ensure you've got a destination in mind. And my destination was taking on a senior finance role. So I ensured as I continued to pursue sort of my passions and gain career experience, I covered off gaining experience across the foundation stones of the requirements to take on a leadership finance role. So very, very lucky that I was able to spend time with Amatil in a range of roles in both commercial advisory, in the corporate group. Spent a lot of time in M&A. Spent a lot of time in our Australian business, leading large teams and small teams. But that diversity, I think, has been a hallmark. Working with and for great people has also been a hallmark of my career. I've sometimes by luck and sometimes by making it happen. I've worked for some wonderful people who've given me. I've aimed to work for people who give me something different in their in the experience, and I've been very lucky that I've worked not only for finance people. It's often the case within finance roles, particularly below a CFO. You tend to spend a lot of time working for accountants. Well, I was very lucky early in my career. I worked for salesmen. I worked for engineers. I worked for guys who gave me a different way of thinking, a different way of problem solving, a different way of addressing issues, and that's been very very helpful for me to get to the point that I'm at. I think probably a key point for me is there's been a number of people who I have mentored and have mentored me through my career to give me that the right balance between helpful direction and a solid nudge at the same time, and helping me to navigate through the complexity of an organisation like ours. Each time though, I found roles that either through lateral moves, downward moves, or upward moves have been able to sort of complement the broader skill set of a CFO.
That's fantastic. And I mentioned obviously leading a team of, I think, around about 300 people across finance and commercial.
Yeah.
I'm sure that presents the odd challenge or two.
Yes.
So how have you, in the latter 2 years, set yourself up for success, in terms of the structure and, I guess, organisational support services?
I think it's in three key areas. Firstly, leadership. Leading a big team, particularly through a period of dynamic change, presents its challenges. So I think, as a leader, our job is to set the direction, make sure there's clarity, and then provide the energy to people to help, achieve that direction and provide the tools and the empowerment that they need. Probably, second would be people, just surrounding yourself with great people. I've been very lucky. I've had flexibility to build a really high-powered team, a very effective group of people, and they allow me to be freed up to sort of focus on the stuff that matters and play the critical advisory role to my colleagues and my managing director. And then I think communication is really important, particularly in periods of change. But I think generally, once the direction's set, you're clear on what you need to achieve as a company, as a team, then open, honest, integrity in your communication is very important. And particularly in periods where there is a lot of uncertainty, providing the certainty you can in an honest and open way is very important to people. And I found that combination of those three things, gives you the ability to manage, a lot of challenge and a lot of uncertainty. Yeah,
fantastic to hear. Now, I guess because I studied engineering and then postgrad in marketing, I've got a bit of a soft spot for the FMCG sector. It's a sector that's had to evolve in certainly the last 5, 6, 7 years. Thinking about the whole consumer and retail play. I guess I'm curious from a CFO lens perspective, what are some of the challenges you've had to navigate or accomplish, perhaps initially on the manufacturing supply side you alluded to, and then perhaps the front end sales and marketing part?
Look, I think in FMCG, whether it's in Australia or anywhere in the world, and I've spent a little bit of time offshore in my career with Amatil, there's always going to be a lot of change, and I think particularly in the last 2 years in consumer goods in Australia, this has been a sector that's seen an enormous amount of variability. So I think that the constant challenge we face is to keep the business running and drive the change at the same time, whether that's across supply chain, sales and marketing, support. So the phrase we use, I use a lot, is we've got to keep the plane flying and change the engines at the same time. And I think, I apply that to our business. One of the things that's really helped me stay relevant with my functional colleagues has been the ability to continue to play that strong governance and compliance role that's the bread and butter of what we do, but also ensure that we, I play a really valuable role as a business partner. I think I'm lucky I've had a fair depth of experience across supply chain, and what I've found is to be successful in my role and in my business partnering capacity is to, if I really understand where these guys are coming from and step out of my, the paradigm of the guy has to make sure everything adds up all the time, to being able to really understand the complexity that they're dealing with, the variability in demand, the supplier inconsistencies, the quality issues, the fact that the customer, may not always, meet their expectations as well. So being able to tolerate the ambiguity of that environment and continue to partner with people, provide the sort of advice that they need, the support that they need through myself and my team, and ensure that they see us as someone who, particularly in the CFO capacity, is working with them to achieve a common goal rather than sort of sitting in the background trying to make sure that they stay on track.
Yeah, it's a fun balance, isn't it? Now, as a vision for the organisation, I think every day you create millions of moments of happiness and possibilities. For your finance leadership team, how do you think the organisation and team need to evolve, develop, acquire new skills to support what CCA looks like in 2-3 years' time?
Yeah, it's something that we're I'm working with my team on right now to really define what the capability and competency set is for our finance leadership group into the future. So I think there's going to be a number of areas of focus for us. Principally, we need people who are skilled in the bread and butter, who really understand the language of business, who've got those core skills really bedded down, and that's an entry-level requirement. And then to differentiate above that, our business really values partnership, people who earn and keep a seat at the table and are valued in decision making, not because they're in they're part of the approval process, but because their input's valued. So the people who best succeed in that environment are people who have got a depth of experience across functions, across industry. People who can tolerate the grey. I think our environment now is going to be much more volatile. People who can deal with the fact that you walk in today and what you expected to do is going to be blown away by what happened in the marketplace yesterday, or whatever happened with the supplier yesterday, or being able to tolerate that variability and be comfortable in that variability. The new normal for all of us is a lack of predictability and being able to succeed in that context. I think it's also important for people coming into finance leadership roles is particularly at Amatil, but I know across FMCG finance in Australia, we're moving on from being the providers of information, from being the guys who produce the reports, from being the guys who do the basic level analysis. We're heading into a very digitised future in relation to the provision of basic sort of finance services. So the people who can actually take that and add value in the context of how do I grow the revenue line, how do I improve production efficiency, how do I save cost in a complex environment that we've already squeezed the sponge as hard as we possibly can, and do that in a creative way that achieves the corporate revenue and cost objective and helps to move the business forward, but not doing it in a way that is avoiding the old school sort of reputation of the finance department. So we're trying to build a bunch of people who have got those broad competencies, have the ability to, as I said, retain the seat at the table and do it in a way that helps to move the business forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. One final question.
Yes.
Bit of a hypothetical.
Yep.
But if you could go back 10 years early in your career and give yourself some pearls of wisdom or advice,
right,
what would you have said to yourself?
There's probably two pieces of advice I'd give myself. One would be don't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
So I think 10 years ago I did spend a lot of time worrying about stuff I really shouldn't have worried about. It's really about, particularly as you move into more senior leadership roles, it's about prioritising, ensuring you stay focused on the stuff that matters, reflecting, making sure you've got time in your day to reflect on what really matters and stay focused on that. Having a great team helps with that, and I think that also helps with staying composed and deliberate in driving outcomes and making sure you're productive during the course of your career. So the second one would be not having a fear of the hard conversations.
Right.
So I think whether that's with your people, whether it's with customers, whether it's with suppliers, with your boss, just maintaining an authentic and often uncomfortable sort of conversation with people from time to time, ensuring they know where you stand on issues, particularly around people and feedback and performance feedback, not waiting for the annual performance cycle to come around, but being direct and constructive in the way that you deliver that with customers, making sure they're clear on the reality of the situation in advance of the problems emerging with suppliers, ensuring they know where you stand in relation to their performance, and with a management team, making sure they are very clear on the reality of the trading situation or whatever the environment that you're in, ensuring they get that clarity is been critically important. Any time I've not done that, I've always been disappointed.
Right. They're beautiful insights, and thank you for sharing.
No problems. Great.
For you and the team at CCA, I wish you all the very best.
Great. Thanks
Thank
very
you
much,
very
Kevin.
much.
Right. Cheers.